Hello, and welcome to The View from Here, a series of shows produced by students from around the world. I'm Thomas Squires, along with Sienna Armstrong and Leah Liederman. We're at Toronto Metropolitan University up here in Canada.
Canadians who are our age, as well as our parents' generation, have always lived in peace. We have never faced conflict or war. We've never heard missiles flying overhead or had to worry about being under attack or grow up knowing that one day we will be drafted into the army.
Well, that's not the case in Israel. There have been several operations and armed conflicts there throughout our lifetime. The most recent war began after Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th.
We've all seen the daily news coverage about the atrocities that happened on October 7th and the ongoing war since then. That coverage tends to focus on the fighting and the politics and not on the traumas of living your life day to day during a war. We just wanted to understand what everyday life is like for people in Israel right now.
We often work with students from Tel Aviv University in Israel on our shows. Because of the war, their university has been closed since October 7th. Shaked Kislev and Danielle Yaish-Harrison are both students at TAU.
Hi, Danielle. Hi, Shaked. How are you? And thank you for coming. So we just want to know what happened on October 7th.
Um, for me, on October 7th, I was actually on the flight back to Israel from Italy from a vacation. And in the morning when we got the news about the attack, we sort of thought that it was just, another round of the usual Hamas shooting rounds, which happened, by the way, annually in Israel. So we're pretty used to having Hamas shooting at civilians. We thought it was, the regular thing. So I texted one of my friends that lives in Be'eri, texted her, the simple text, hey, how are you? Are you safe? And she replied strangely shortly, I should say. She didn't say she was safe. She only said, I'm in the shelter. We're holding the door. Then the news came to us, and we started to see that this time it's very different. It's very different. At that moment, I can only assimilate it to trying to text a friend who is in class while there's a school massacre. And he's in class, and there's a school massacre, and the only thing you can do is text him. And I didn't know what to say. I was sitting in my plane, and I was trying to formulate something to write to her, and I didn't know what to say. Should I ask her, are you safe? What's happening? Maybe that will stress her. Maybe I should tell her it's gonna be okay, they're gonna take care of you. But that could be a false promise, and I don't want to bullshit my friend, So I was paralyzed. She kept on updating me with very short sentences that were even more frightening than if she would have said more. She told me that she hears the terrorists outside, and she told me that the army is coming. She told me that they were getting evicted safely, and that was it. And ever since then, I think we only talked once. And it's not because I haven't tried talking, it's because you can't really text after that. So that was my October 7th. Being useless, helpless, while your friends are are at horrible danger. That's what there is.
It's not easy talking about that day, but I remember a lot of disbelief as a person that served a few years in the army. We always said that we had the best intelligence, and there are two places that you're supposed to feel as safe as you can, and that's at home and on base, because it's always patrolled. And on that day, we realized that everything that we knew was wrong, and being at home is not the safest place, and being on base is not the safest place. And when I say base, most of the people there did like office jobs. They most of them didn't even carry a weapon. And as a former officer in the army that used to recruit soldiers and field intelligence observers and telling them that it's going to be safe, and realizing that they're not there anymore, it's kind of blowing your mind. And to be honest, at the first day, we didn't have any perspective or proportion, because by the end of the first day, they said that there were only like, I think like 30 people murdered. And next day we realized that it's by the thousands. It's not that short. And suddenly people started being categorized in different groups: the murdered, the injured, the missing, the kidnapped, the evacuated, and the numbers kept shifting. And suddenly you see that the number of kidnapped or missing goes down, and you're supposed to be happy, but it's not. That just meant that they're dead. And for the first week, we everything here was complete chaos. No specific list was published. At first, they talked only about the murdered, and only about a week they started talking about the kidnapped and the missing. And that's while you know that there are people that you know that were there. And I've spent the first week after that day searching for my friends in footage that maybe had been published to the world or maybe hasn't. I don't know what you've seen, but I know that I've seen some horrible things, and I don't think that there's words to explain how it feels to recognize a face of somebody on a video online, and he's not alive anymore. That's the worst way to find out that this is something different. And I don't know how many funerals you've been in a week, but 5 is it's pretty much intense.
Danielle, what inspired you to create this video diary during this devastating time?
I don't know what made me do it, but I decided to make this diary the minute that the first siren went off. I got out of bed, and I remember myself, while running to the shelter, stopping, turning around, and taking a mental picture to remember this frame. And while filming, I tried to recreate what I saw, what I felt. And everything is originally located. We filmed everything at the exact same locations that I was during that day. And it was kind of hard to recreate everything and to live this day over again. But I felt like that there's a voice that needs to be heard. And on the news is painted with heartbreaking stories and families and people that got hurt directly. And there are 9 million other people here that their lives changed. And nobody's talking about it. And every story is a story. And I feel like people outside of Israel need to understand the feeling that we have around here. And I'm telling you, every day I hear of a story of someone who wasn't affected directly by what happened on October 7th, but it's still a great story. And you see the difference, how people behave and act. And I really think that it's the small things. There's a lot of things that I wanted to put in that film and I didn't have the chance to, but it's really the small things that show that I'm a person, and I really wanted to get that through. So many rockets at this time of day for no reason is out of the ordinary. We ran to the shelter, a group of terrified people in pajamas, not really knowing what's going on. Some of them tried to guess why this is happening. And at first we thought it was only rockets, but then we realized that it's much, much bigger than what we thought. We didn't get enough information from the news. We decided to go to social media. Things we came across were horrific. All we could do is just sit and wait and go through footage and search for more information. My boyfriend turned to me and he said that there was an invasion to one of the bases near the border. I immediately knew where it was and who was in it. I was recruited as a field intelligence observer. Basically, I would protect the field, the fence, to see that no one is coming across. And it's a very important job. There's a lot of us, and there were some on that base. I know what it's like to lose one of your own. I felt like I lost like 18 sisters that day. It's just not fair. Two days after that, he got recruited. Suddenly it was real. He drove me home and we had to say goodbye. And I didn't know where he was going or how long. Suddenly our relationship took a different turn, from moving in together to not seeing him or not knowing when I'm gonna see him next. The following week, I was absolutely devastated. I couldn't get myself to get up. The only place that I went besides being at home was a funeral and another funeral and another funeral, and I had to go through this with some of my friends and with my mom. Every single day when they read the names of the fallen, every single Israeli is in front of the screen watching and praying that they don't know the name. School started being postponed a few weeks after a few weeks because I moved back to my mom's place. It's hard for me to find a job here. I used to be a bartender in Tel Aviv. That was my main income, and nobody's partying, nobody's dancing. I'm left sitting at home. I can't find a job that I can commit to. I feel like I've lost all hope on that day. And it's really hard to have hope when every time I open social media, a place that was supposed to connect me to the world and bring me happiness and joy and laughter became a place that either the content there prays that I will die and is asking me to die, and the other half is just heartbreaking stories of people that survive. Every single Israeli was affected by what happened on October 7th. Luck. That's all we have. And I'm lucky. I'm lucky to have my friends. I'm lucky to have my family. I'm lucky to have the strength to keep on and fight. And this is my home. This is my language. These are my people.
I wanted to start off by saying that I'm so sorry for all of your losses. I can't even imagine. Your video really moved me. The loss and the sorrow of war is so unimaginable, but the added aspect of being separated from your loved ones is unthinkable. While watching this video, I could feel your pain through the video. And ending it with a message of gratitude and love for Israel was so powerful. And I want to thank you for making this. And I do think that a lot of people need to see it.
So Danielle, what do you hope people will walk away from watching your video with?
It's really important to me to show that as a film student, to show my memory and to do something that is not scripted, to sit in front of a camera, to tell what I feel, to talk. And to be honest, that was a really, really good relief to just say everything and to release these thoughts from my mind, and even to have the opportunity to show what I was seeing as I was thinking these thoughts. And one of the things that I really had, it was really important to me to get through, is the disassociation that we had sometimes on the news. Catastrophic. People dying and all about war, and everything is so horrible and serious. And then I just lift my head up from my phone for a minute or from my iPad, and I see a woman like putting on laundry and washing her window, and everything seems so normal, but it's not. So it kind of took me off a little bit in reality, that on the one hand, my heart and my mind are in a mess, and I can't stop crying, and I'm mourning, and everything just seems broken, and I just couldn't see the end. But on the other hand, it's a beautiful day, and the buses are working, and people are doing, they just continue living. So a lot of death in front of life. And some of those moments really got me thinking about who am I? What am I doing here? Why am I here? And as part of the production, I interviewed a few of my friends to get a little bit of perspective, to see that maybe it's not only me. And it's not only me. A lot of people.
Definitely. Like when I was watching your personal production, it was honestly the most eye-opening thing for me to see, because clearly on our side of the world, we don't get to experience that. And even just the way you shot it, I got to see it from your perspective. And it was definitely something that made me take myself back and really look at how privileged in all that I am to live in Canada, and that this is now your day-to-day life. So I'm really thankful, and I thank you for, you know, sharing that with us, because that's a very vulnerable thing for you to do. As for Shaked, how has this changed your day-to-day life?
Well, immediately after October 7th, we went into war. So we didn't have time to digest things exactly. While information was still blurred and unclear, Israel just stormed into this operation. All of my friends were immediately recruited to everywhere. We didn't know where they were. They didn't know where they would be. They just jumped on a uniform. They went away disconnected. Some of them didn't even pack toothbrushes because they didn't know for how long they would be there. We didn't know how many people died. We didn't know how many people were missing, as Danielle said. So the shock continued after October 7th. Everything was closed because missiles and rockets were being shot at us continuously. So at the first 2 days, I was at home, basically waiting between alarm and alarm, siren to siren, rocket to rocket, watching the news. And on October 9th, my father, who was a military man, decided to volunteer in the Gaza envelope, which was still a war zone. I'm not talking about the Gaza Strip, I'm talking about the Gaza envelope, the villages around Gaza in Israel. He decided to go there, and I, for strange reasons, decided to join him and to go there. We immediately started volunteering
Day or two after.
Yeah, on October 9th, I remember it. We volunteered spreading food for soldiers because there were a lot of food donations, because there was confusion to how long they would stay there, who stays there, and the amount of soldiers staying there. So we got there, volunteered, spread food, rockets were firing at us. That's the day-to-day.
I would
And
like
ever since then, we just kept on volunteering. My father volunteered at a restaurant that made food for evicted people and soldiers, and I went to volunteer in farming. That became our day-to-day lives. And the most important thing was that at 8 o'clock, everybody opened the news. Everyone, every day, just waiting to hear something. It was a ritual.
I would like just to add that something that people are not talking about as much is that a lot of people got recruited, and I'm talking about 300,000 people got recruited. That's 300,000 fathers, workers, employees. A lot of places got shut down because of that. And one of the reasons that our school kept getting postponed is because they didn't want to leave any of them outside of school activity. Some of them haven't come home in the past 2 months. And that affected everything, the economy, society, and even school. That's the main reason we haven't started. We haven't had a lot of rockets here as much at the past few days, but that's the main reason. A lot of us students are recruited, and it just wouldn't be fair to continue without them.
Well, none of us here in Canada have ever experienced having to be called up to serve in the military. So I think it's something that a lot of people here, I think, need to understand to just hear some perspective.
when it's an emergency and you get recruited in an emergency, you just leave everything and go. And I think most of us still have, the ones that are required to volunteer in case of emergency, or to get recruited in case of emergency, which is not everyone. It's important to say it's only people that agreed, signed, or have been in extended service. And I have my shoes packed, and I have my military uniform packed, and I have all of the things that I need, and I have a bag for 2 weeks, because I don't know if they're going to call me tomorrow and tell me we need your assistance. Come.
Danielle, how did you feel when your boyfriend was called up?
I wasn't surprised. Before he was called up, he already packed a bag, and I see him packing a bag and ask him, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm gonna go help down south." So it's kind of in his blood. I wasn't really surprised, but I kind of put a break on our relationship, and suddenly every time he comes home, it's to my mom's place. We were supposed to move in together, as I said in the video, and it's like me, my mom, and him once upon a time sitting, and it's really hard. We haven't gone out ever since, and it took a real toll on our relationship. But we're gonna get through this, and it's gonna make us stronger as a couple. And I think that you if you live here, if you have a Facebook here, you'll see that a lot of people are getting married because of this. A lot of people are getting married in the bases. A lot of people are getting married as quickly as possible just to be attached. My boyfriend and I talked about getting engaged just because in case something happened to him, I will be recognized as his family. And these are things that you don't think about in a day-to-day basis. You don't get engaged because you have to. You get engaged because you want to. And right now it's kind of necessary, and it's sad because we love each other and we want to get engaged eventually. But I'm really upset that it had to get down to this.
But the other day, at one of my friend's funerals, Lavi Lifshitz, who was a brilliant artist, we studied art together, and he died fighting in Gaza. And at his funeral, I stood there and I thought, that if I would have been recruited, maybe I would fight with him, and maybe he wouldn't die. It's a strange thought, you know. It's because it couldn't have happened for many reasons, but for some reason, there at the funeral, I was very angry at myself that I wasn't recruited, because he was there and he died and I wasn't, and I didn't take any part of it, even though maybe I could, and maybe in a way being with him then would have helped him.
That is very difficult to deal with, I imagine, and I'm really sorry that, you know, both of you and you should have to go through this. But you know, the Jewish community in Toronto is with you, and you know, as someone in that community, I can tell you that we've come together more than ever before, not only because of the events of October 7th, but also the overwhelming fear of rising anti-Semitism here and around the world. My sister, actually, who is living in Tel Aviv, she said that there's an ominous feeling around the city, and like a lack of young people because of being called to the reserves. I'm just wondering if either of you feel that way as well.
What we feel here, I think, is we are shamed and hated pretty carelessly, I would say, around the world. I just saw the other day the video of the heads of the Ivy League academias that refuse to say that calling for the genocide of Jews is considered harassment or is illegal in their universities, which is terrifying and insane. And the massive protests that are against us and in a sense also are projected onto you, which sometimes I feel even, guilty for, because the fact that what happens here was projected onto you and is inflamed onto you is another burden that Israel carries. And I don't want to say that I apologize for it, because I don't think we're guilty of anything, but I'm sorry that it happens. And I have friends in the US that are telling me that they took off their kippah because they don't want to look too Jewish. And there was a synagogue. I have a friend who's a rabbi. He came to Israel to become a rabbi, and he went back to the US, and somebody tried to set his synagogue on fire, but they caught him, luckily. So we feel you, and we are just as threatened, and we are very sorry that it happens, even though we don't believe it's our fault.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
We don't really know what you see outside of Israel. We basically get the same information. So I would like to ask you, what do you feel about what's going on in Israel and what's going on in Gaza? How do you feel about it? Do you look at Israel in a different way, or?
I am so heartbroken over what's been happening. It's kind of weird because the Jewish community has come together so much through this tragedy that I feel so much more connected to my Judaism and so much more connected to Israel. And as someone who I lived in Israel for about a year, I understand what it's like to be there during the good times and to be there during the bad times. But when October 7th happened, much like what you guys are saying, like something was different. And the backlash that the rest of the Jewish community of the world is feeling, I think that at least from what I can tell, like that just makes us love Israel even more.
How do you get information about Israel and about what's happening here? Like where do you know things from?
Yeah, for me, I get most of my information off of Instagram, only because I feel like Instagram is like a wider social media platform where people from around the world can voice their opinions. I find that the news is very much, there's a lot of either propaganda, or they're not relaying the right message, or they're only saying only as parts of the message so that they don't come off as very political. So I find that like I kind of sit back from the news and I allow people from like those countries that are like going through this war to tell me what's going on. But then again, there's also the negatives and positives with Instagram as well. Like you have to be very mindful of what media you're consuming. So it's just, that's where I'm learning to like learn about what's happening. It's kind of hard only because like everyone has their own opinion, but at the end of the day, like, it's not really about me. It's about, being educated on what's happening around the world.
I'm sort of the opposite. I don't have many social media accounts. So I mainly get my information from the news and news headlines. And I mean, everyone here in Canada knows that Western news media is not the most unbiased, but I also think despite that it is generally more well informed than news that you can find on Instagram, because anyone can post anything on Instagram. They can base it on anything. I mean, that's not discrediting it as a valid source of news. So I generally do try to surround myself with different sources and just try to paint a bigger picture of what I can what I can understand. But it's like on social media or in the news or not, just I have noticed just a blind hatred and just distaste towards Israel, and any conflict. There's more nuance to it than that.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say that most of my information comes from the news circulating the Jewish community and what my sister says. My uncle is actually the vice president of World Jewish Congress, so he keeps updating my family on relevant and important information. But these days, the Jewish community is doing everything that they can to support each other, and because of a major Jewish presence on my social media, I'm able to access a lot of information through articles and videos in support of Israel. But I have been overwhelmingly exposed to so much anti-Semitic and misinformed social media posts. So I do what I can to double check my information. But it's very widespread, that misinformation.
You're right, Leah, but social media has also had a positive impact on raising awareness about the war and calling on people to take action. So, Shekhed, Danielle, could you tell us more about how that has impacted your lives?
I think that social media is media after all, and the whole opinion shifts with how many likes you get. And I do follow some people that do support Israel, and they explain in a very, very correct way what's going on. But when you see a lot of people that are not from here trying to explain, and again, there are more people out of here trying to explain than are people here that can really explain. And when you see a lot of people trying to explain, it kind of messes you up a bit. I've even had a moment that I've stopped and said, wait, maybe what I know is not correct. And then I remember that it's correct because I know the people. And when I see on social media a debate between two people, someone who's representing my team and someone who's representing their team, which the team is not right, by the way, the whole conversation in social media is Israel and Palestine. That's not the conversation. That's not what's going on. It's Israel and Hamas. We feel, at least I feel, heartbroken for what's going in Gaza. But from where I'm standing, it's me or them. So of course I'm going to represent my opinion, even if it's the most harsh opinion ever, because that's what I think.
Social media is trend based. And there is a generation here that believes that the reflection of social media is reality. And this generation absorbs the trend-based perspective to reality that is based on 6-second videos that are very reductive to this complex situation. You're unable to represent the complex reality of war and the complex reality generally, I would say, but you can't do it on a trend-based platform. So the illusion that you see reality through social media is destructive, not necessarily for me, because I think Israel would act regardless of what social media says. We'll do whatever is good for us. We're independent, so no worries. I think for the people who believe that what they're seeing is reality, it is so destructive. You just lose your vocabulary for complexity. I think that people who care about what's happening here and who care about the truth of what happens here need to come over here. You need to take a plane, make an effort to find the truth. Don't just sit back, watch a 6-second video and believe that you have effortlessly managed to find the truth. The truth just sort of came to you because Instagram obviously wants to promote truth only. Twitter is obviously interested in the valid truth. Truth doesn't come easy. And if you care about what's happening here, and if you want to know the truth, you need to make the effort of knowing the truth.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Like me, as someone that consumes Instagram a lot, because that's like the main social media platform that I know, and like to hear your perspective on like, using it as like my main social media platform to consume, I will take back and like look and reflect on like where I am getting my news from, because I do agree, like it, at the end of the day, it is all just a big melting pot of everyone's opinions, but coming there and actually seeing it for myself will definitely reveal what's really happening. So I am going to be very mindful of that. And I thank both of you for pointing that out. I am going to segue and change subjects a little bit here. I know you shook head, that you found volunteering to be an antidote to fake social media though. Could you, delve more into that for me?
People who came to volunteer wanted to disconnect, and they wanted to make the physical connection to the actual people in need, and to talk to them, and to hear them, to listen to them, to help them physically, not just to express the opinion of helping them. And that is what I wanted to show in the item that I'm going to show you soon. I wanted to show what it's like to just go there, to physically be present. That is why I think the emphasis on this item is on the landscapes, is on the view, is on the earth, is on the conversations to people. And you won't hear me talk much, I think. You would hear them just saying what they have to say. And you would see the reality, the physical reality of things. That is why it was important to me to show people making effort to seek the truth in volunteering.
עזבו 10,000 עובדים זרים את הארץ. אין מספיק כוח אדם בשביל לדאוג לביטחון של מזון.
בכל העוטף שטחים עצומים נתונים כרגע בסכנה ממשית, ובאשר לממשלה, לרשויות, מהם לא תבוא הישועה.
שהשלטון יתעורר.
בכל מקום זה נדרש, כל החקלאים חסרים להם ידיים עובדות, ובכל מקום צריך.
בעוטף אנחנו לא שומעים את האזעקות בעצם, ויש לנו רק 15 שניות. אחר ואין מרחבים מוגנים, נשכבים על הקרקע. כמה זמן? אנחנו בעצם מחכים. אם שומעים בום, מחכים 30 שניות. אם לא שומעים בום, אנחנו צריכים להישאר 10 דקות במנח.
רק העשייה ורק הבנייה. אני לא רוצה להיכנס לחממה הזאת, היא חממה גמורה. אני רוצה להיכנס לחממה שפורחת. ניסיתי לברוח מפה, לא להיות ליד זה. ללכת למקום הירוק. אחד העובדים, דודו, יש שריפה שם, לא רוצה לשמוע את השריפה. אתם תדברו איתי איפה השתילה. ותכניס את הטרקטור לחרוש, ואני רוצה להריח את הריח של האדמה מלמטה. אם אני אריח את הריח של השריפה, אני אהיה בתוך השריפה. אז אתה מקבל כוחות להגיד, וואלה, מאיפה אני משיג שתילים, ובאיזה דרך אני אביא אותם, ומיליון ואחד שאלות צצות, אבל בכל זאת אתה אומר, אני חייב היום להמשיך ולשים שתיל חדש.
שבת ל7 לאוקטובר הייתי פה עובד במשק, ואני כבר 10 שנים עובד במשק הזה. הבנתי שכמו כל פעם יורים 2 שיגורים, 3 שיגורים, מפסיקים, אולי כמו תמיד. אז הגיעה השעה 7:45, ואז ידעתי שיש חדירה. שהגיעו למקום, וכל המקום הזה כבר מלא מחבלים, ואני שומע יריות, חיות קרובות אליי. הבאתי את כל העובדים שנמצאים איתי, את כל התאילנדים שהיו במשק, שמתי אותם בתוך הבית אריזה, נשארנו שם בתוך הבית אריזה, ישנו לילה מאוד מאוד קשה, הייתה מבחינת הטילים, מבחינת היריות. אני מסתכל שמאלה, ימינה, אני רואה שאני במקום אחר, גופות פה, גופות שם. אני נשאר פה כי אני כבר חלק מהמקום הזה, אני 10 שנים עובד במקום הזה. אני לא יכול לעזוב.
זה חיבור לאדמה, זה משהו אחר. כולם סביב זה. זה הכל. לא הולכים לטיול במשק. החיים שלנו זה המשק. והמנהיגות שלנו, לצערי, ככה אני מרגיש, נמצאת ממש ממש למטה, אני אומר את זה בכאב. צריך להיות גם צורה אחרת של התייחסות לאזרח הפשוט. אני מדבר לפני המלחמה עוד. משהו לא תקין בהתנהלות של המדינה, שאני חושב שהוא כמובן נוגע לנו גם. כי אנחנו 40 יום אחרי הלחימה, שאין כאן עדיין עובדים. שאני לא יודע מה אני עושה, לא מחר, שלשום, לפני שבוע. במשק הזה הועסקו גם עזתים, גם חבר'ה מרצועת עזה.
אתה מכיר את השיר של אריק איישר על החקלאים שעברו בפרח בלי לראות את סוף הדרך? לא תמיד אתה צריך להסתכל, לראות את סוף הדרך כדי להתחיל ללכת. ואני הולך, ואני מקווה שזה יעזור. אני בא, ואני עוזר, וכל אחד תורם את התרומה הקטנה שלו. כל חייל שהולך הוא חייל אחד בודד, זה לא שהוא ישנה את המלחמה, אבל התרומה שלו חשובה, אז גם התרומה שלי חשובה, התרומה של חברים שלי חשובה, התרומה של כל אחד חשובה, ביחד זה מצטבר לכוח. אני לא עושה את החשבון האישי שלי, כי אם אני אעשה את החשבון האישי שלי, וכל אחד יעשה את החשבון האישי שלו, אז לא יצא מזה כלום. אז זה המחשבה שלי.
Can you tell us how different the environment was on the farm on the farm before and after the attacks began?
Well, those people were abandoned on October 7th and after October 7th. Till this very day, many of them didn't get any help from the government, only from volunteers, and there were many volunteers. But there's this white noise of abandonment that is present all around the different farms that I visited. And I visited many different farms. They are desperate. And, you know, they weren't exactly in a perfect situation before October 7th. I wouldn't say things were amazing for them, and we know it, and we've known it for a long time. But everybody thought this would be a wake-up call, and it wasn't. But in the foreground of this white noise, they put on a very brave face. And I say a very brave face because I don't know what's in their hearts. but they've put on a very brave face, and they are so happy to see every single volunteer coming and helping, and they are amazed and shocked and grateful, so grateful, which is a strange situation to be in, considering their finances and considering the lack of support and this abandonment. They are so grateful for the volunteers who came here. And I think in the item, Dudu, the farmer, said that he was in love again with Israel and with its people, not necessarily its leadership, but its people. And they are so proud. Some of them have even gone to sort of dismiss themselves and say, like, I don't know if this farm will still exist, which is a tough thing to say if you're a farmer and you've lived your whole life in this farm. I don't know if this farm will exist, but I am so proud to be Israeli right now. And they pick the happiest parts of their lives right now in a way that I don't think I can do it as good as they do.
When we were filming during the production, that was my first time at the farm, and I was amazed by the bravery that these people have, the volunteers, especially because 6 a.m. and you see, as you saw in his film, hundreds, and I'm not over exaggerating, hundreds of cars of people that woke up from up north and drove for hours during the night to help and do something unrewarded. And I don't know if you put in the siren that we've heard. That was scary. Okay, that was real. I got in, and there was no siren, and I've heard a notification on my phone, and I didn't know what it was because it was a different sound, and I'm not used to hearing that sound. And then a second later, boom, over my head, and my instinct just said, get on the ground and cover your head. And it's an instinct because we're taught to do so ever since we're children. But it was really exciting to see life, to see color, to see something different than home. I think that our video is kind of conflict. I show the homey inside part, and you show the outside growing green part.
I think it's pretty incredible how your video captures community through tragedy. And we've also heard about a group called the Standing Together that brings Jewish and Arab Israelis together. Can you talk to us more about that?
Yes. Well, after the October 7th, there was there was this strange notion that that the Arab Israelis might, attack Israelis and take revenge and go crazy. And we were warned sometimes by our government. We were warned. And Standing Together is a group that is in Israel considered a rather extreme left. We should say it. But they are ceaselessly working to connect Israelis and Arabs and to strengthen the connection between Israelis and Arabs. And in this very suspicious atmosphere, they initiated a project called the Solidarity Guard, in which they have spread signs that promote solidarity between Arabs and Israelis, saying the very different message to some of the things we have heard, saying we will we will go through this together, Arab Israelis and Jewish Israelis. And they have opened it's called a hotline. I don't know if that translates well to English.
Yes, yes, hotline.
They have opened a hotline for people who felt either discriminated or especially suspected or even violently discriminated in Israel, to make sure that we are together and we hear all voices and we don't deny the suspicion, but we dissolve it. We humanize everyone. And it was pretty, I couldn't bring here the evidences from the hotline and the conversations from standing together, but to see what they're publishing is very impressive. To see how there is an alternative way to think, and there is a way to show Israeli society very differently.
Yeah, that's really nice that they opened up a hotline so that they can feel open to like talk and voice like what they're going through. For both of you, I want to know, with everything that's going around you guys, how do you stay safe and protect yourself every day?
Where I live, the sirens is not the main problem because we haven't heard one ever since the war started. And I do have a minute and a half to run to the shelter across the street, which is not much. But I think that from where I live in a more mixed area of Israeli Arabs and Israeli Jews. And we really live together in this kind of society. But in every society, there are some radicals that no one is taking into consideration. And we do have radicals here in Israel that are attacking people, and they're against the law, and we don't see it lightly. But you don't know if someone is gonna want to make, especially at this time, a justice move, something that seems just to him, and try to hurt me or my family. And where I live, it's not really it is guarded, but it's not like 100% airtight. I can walk in and out of my village with no problem. And it's hard to know. Like what I'm afraid of is not being safe in my home. And every time that I go to sleep, I think, what are the steps that I'm going to take if I hear my dogs barking like crazy? But on the other hand, I drink coffee with the workers that work on that are just building the house next to me. And I walked in with a Muslim woman that asked me to walk with her into the gynecologist. It's a very, as Shaked said, it's a very complicated kind of relationship because it's not white or black.
And it definitely doesn't get enough coverage.
Yeah,
I should say the shared life in Israel definitely doesn't get enough coverage, and it definitely doesn't get enough coverage specifically in this war. And I think this is something that is important for us to stress, that we live together
more than being safe,
and that we even serve together, and people maybe don't talk about it enough.
And I'll just add one last thing. I wanted to interview some people that I know, Israeli Muslims or Arab Christians, and most of them said no, and some of them said no because they feel that scared. I wanted to interview someone who's quite close to me, and he has 4 children and a wife. And when I asked him, "Can I interview you?" he just laughed in the phone and said, like, "Are you crazy? I don't want a death sentence." And he was kidding, but people are scared to speak out, and that's why you don't see as much Arab Israeli speaking out, because you don't know what's going on inside their community as much as they don't know very much what's going on in mine. We do live together, but there is some kind of distance that is, I can't really put my finger on where it cuts through. But I'm safe.
I wanted to just ask from your guys' perspective, why is it important for you to talk to us about your experience and what's happening in Israel?
Well, actually, originally I didn't want to show specifically my perspective because I wasn't sure that my perspective was qualified or very relevant, and because these times it's very hard for someone to think, on their own perspective and themselves in a way. It felt kind of selfish somehow. But in the decision of talking about my experience, what I wanted to show is a case for the Israeli spirit that is put into test in this war. And right now, what we are doing is not victimizing, but rising up to human destruction and to catastrophe. And the force of rising up is so strong and so lifeful that is important to show. And it manifests in every individual's lives, including mine, including Danielle's. So that is what I wanted to show, talking about my experience, and to show that it's a strange thing to say, but I think somehow in the West it has been perceived as if in Israel, because we have the power and because we have the Iron Dome, that the war doesn't matter to us, that it doesn't change anything. We have the Iron Dome. We are the powerful ones. But I wanted to show and stress that we don't want this war. We don't enjoy this war. We're not happy that this is happening. And we are reasonable, heartful people, just like you, just like everybody. And we're not the war monsters that some people try to portray us as.
Thank you. Thank you, Danielle and Shaked, for taking this time to speak with us today. We really appreciate it. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure that everyone else here also has learned a lot. So thank you so much for today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
And we're sorry for how long this has been.
That's okay. We've
to say.
We everyone here, us Canadians, we have the privilege of remaining ignorant. Obviously, you don't, you're living every day in the middle of this conflict. You don't have that privilege. So I hope we can get your insider perspective on just everyday life to as many people here as possible.
Yeah, and we hope that you continue to stay safe and that this war will be over soon.
Yeah,
we hope so too.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you for, for seeking the truth, seeking to talk to actual people and making the effort to talk to real people. It's important, and many people don't do it.
It was our pleasure. Thanks again for your time. It was a very enlightening discussion.
Definitely.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.